We're doing Trust Falls with La Chimera, and we're looking for an almond and a seahorse in the kingdom of the planet of the apes. I'm Van Connor.
And I'm Adam Ball, and this is Off Screen, your 7-day guide to everything movies.
Boom.
Hello and welcome back to Off Screen then. Boy, have we got some movies for you this week. We are going to look at Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes very soon, which I must say, Van, I saw many of your snaps last night that you took and uploaded onto social media. It looked like you were having a lot of fun.
But full-on monkey business, monkey business at its finest.
It absolutely was, I could tell. So we'll see what Van thought about that in a bit. We've got the Almond and the Seahorse, but we've got to start with something that is described, which doesn't look like it as far as the cover goes, but it's described as an adventure comedy fantasy, and it's called La Chimera.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I see where you're falling apart because I just realised what the IMDb description of this actually says. Okay, I'm going to... You've presumably got the trailer playing on mute behind you, so you can see that the tone and the description do not line up. Okay, so we'll go with the IMDb description first, which is a group of archaeologists and the black market of historical artefacts, which... Yeah, okay, that's like describing a human being as a vessel that contains 2/3 water, but sure, okay, it's technically not wrong. It's maybe a bit misguided. So, new movie from Alice Vorvaker, who gave us The Wonders in, I think it was 10 years ago now, I think. It was was that the Tuscan Beekeeper movie? I think I was looking this up before the show. And this stars Josh O'Connor, most recently seen a fortnight ago as one of the 3 players in Challengers. He was the upstart love interest in Challengers with Zendaya and Mike Feist. Here, he is a British archaeologist in the 1980s who's fallen on hard times. He's wearing a scruffy suit. He's searching for something, more specifically, someone. And this is part of the mystery that unfolds as he returns to Italy in the 80s and takes part in... Were they the Trombolis? I'm trying to remember what they were called. The archaeologist hunters of the 1980s became a very big spree in Italy in the 80s to dig up all the old Etruscan tombs and search for loot that you could sell on the black market. This is not as exciting as I am making it sounding or as IMDb do, because, like I said, this is an entirely subtitled movie. There's an occasional line in English. And it is very much a dour, kind of po-faced drama, for lack of a better term. This is mumblecore Indiana Jones, if you can imagine. This is Indiana Jones if Indiana Jones sat around in the canteen while everyone else went off on the expeditions and talked about the meaning of the expeditions in Italian. Best way I can really describe it. You've got Isabella Rossellini in there as well, turning up as sort of matriarch of the family that he spends time with. It's a bit overlong. 2 hours 10 this one runs for, which is... It's a long one, isn't it? 2:10?
Yeah, that's too long for a movie. That's too long.
I mean, I literally watched, a race of... I'm giving the thumbs up here. I literally watched a race of apes. I watched a race of apes do their entire planetary history in 2 hours and 25 minutes last night. So 2 hours 10 for this seems like a bit overkill. Quite frankly, it is a film that feels... It's been dumped out to cash in on the popularity of Challengers. It's been. I feel like that's the case. I mean, I've not had that actually confirmed for me, but if I were a betting man or just a skeptic, I would say they saw that Challengers was going to be out and Josh O'Connor would have a movie in cinemas, and being that it was a Luca Guadagnino one, people might pay attention to him. So let's put this out. And I would argue that if you are the kind of person who would be duped by that, you reap what you sow, and this is exactly what you deserve. I did not take to this at all. This was more of a return for me, to me, for Josh O'Connor going back to just the kind of bored, sweaty mumblecore thing that he started out with. And I've only ever enjoyed Josh O'Connor in a movie twice. One was the remake of Emma. I keep saying remake. The new adaptation of Emma in 2020, which was very enjoyable. And Challengers recently, which I thought he was great. This feels like you've taken the 2 steps forward. Now take 5 back. And nothing more. I didn't connect with the material. I mean, there's some great cinematography. There's some great visuals that really do lean on that period setting, where obviously the framing of it, the way it's been made to look, very much resembles an Italian film of specifically the early 80s. but you really struggle to get through this. I mean, Mumblecore is bad enough on any given day. Doing it in Italian for the better part of 2+ hours, that's a real ask.
Well, watching the trailer in the background, as you said, I quite often do that when you're talking. It just looks quite dark and dingy, if I'm honest. It's not something that's full of colour and brightness and happiness, and it all just looks very... Bleh.
It's the Italy of the 1980s. There's a fair amount of time spent in Etruscan tombs, but we are talking about, going and digging up the back garden and hoping to find a cave. And that really is the source of the drama. I mean, there's this element where, he owes money to fencers and things like that. But you start thinking, I feel like there was just a slightly more entertaining, more propulsive mainstream way to tell this story. It's not an inherently uninteresting story. It's the way it's been told is disastrously unentertaining and unengaging. I just did not care with it, did not click with the material at all. And I say this as someone who, as I say, I've been quite a convert to Josh O'Connor in recent years, but this feels like a real, step backwards. Maybe from his perspective, the fact that he's doing it mostly in Italian feels like the adventure. But, that adventure that he's on, damn sure ain't translating to you and I watching it. You know what I mean?
Does anything come to mind that you would instinctively do differently than if you were directing this or producing this?
Oh, give it to another writer and say, make this entertaining. Have a long nap instead. Pick a more charismatic actor who's willing to do more with this. I mean, I was watching this and I was thinking to myself, I kind of miss the days when a film like this would lead you to something like, was it City of Z? I think it was. The Robert Pattinson one a few years ago. And I could kind of excuse that because it kind of felt like the parodic vanity project that an Entourage-level actor would do. This kind of feels like the boring answer to that. And, yeah, this was my last one of the week, and it was not a one to go out on.
I'm surprised you didn't fall asleep by the sounds of how you feel about this one.
I'm not going to lie.
Well, if you want to watch La Chimera, you can. It's in cinemas from today, but what kind of cinema van are we looking at here?
Oh, art house. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a Curzon movie. So it's in Curzon cinemas anyway, but I imagine some of the art house ones are getting this as well. Like I say, the only people racing out to see this are going to be Alice Rohrwacher fans, all 12 of them, and presumably the same number of Josh O'Connor fans, and all the overflow of TikTokers who seem to think that Challengers is in any way indicative of his standard of work.
Well, there you go. You can make your own mind up. As always, it's out in cinemas from today. Just look out for La Chimera. Right, we're going to look at the Almond and the Seahorse in just a second. I know nothing about this. And
there is not an almond or a seahorse to be found. I'm just going to tell you that.
Exactly.
Neither.
I was going to say, it's a random title, so I have no idea where we're going with this, but we're going to find out next. Welcome back to Off Screen. Still loads of movies to talk about. We're going to attempt to talk about the Almond and the Seahorse right now. I mentioned a moment ago I know nothing about it, which I don't, apart from one thing, and that is that it has Rebel Wilson in, and I really do quite like Rebel Wilson, so I hope you're not going to spoil my illusion of thinking she's a great, funny actress.
I'm going to absolutely shatter that deeply misheard illusion that you have. Oh, wow. Okay, I never knew this about you. Oh. God, why couldn't you just tell me you were into choking or something? It'd be so much easier than I'm a Rebel Wilson fan. Jesus, Adam. Okay, right. Let's take this one smooth and by the numbers from the top. Okay, The Almond and the Seahorse, new movie starring Rebel Wilson and Charlotte Gainsbourg. And Mira Sayal is in there as well. This is a British movie. It does not feature an almond nor a seahorse. In fact, can I read you the IMDb's? Because I'm fascinated by this. After our last experience,
please do.
I want to read you what IMDb has for the plot of this, and then I'm going to destroy them. I'm going to absolutely annihilate IMDb after I read this. Okay. This is, as written on IMDb, what happens when you're ambushed by time? An archaeologist and an architect fight to reimagine a future after a traumatic brain injury leaves them adrift from the people they love. Which sounds quite compelling and quite fascinating, actually. Okay, here's the crack. Right. Rebel Wilson is a British woman married to a schlubby dude who's had a brain injury, and he's losing his cognitive functions slowly and over time. He's losing his memory, his personality. He's simply, psychologically, cerebrally degrading to basically childhood. And he's forgetting innocent things. It's like having Alzheimer's, but at a very early age. Now, meanwhile, Charlotte Gainsborough is having the same thing with her partner / wife. I think she's a wife. And only they're further along. And Charlotte Gainsborough and Rebel Wilson meet by chance at the hospital / clinic into which they are seeking treatment for their respective partners. The clinic is being run by Mira Sayal that they keep venturing to for treatment in their lives. This chance meeting between the two of them gives way to friendship and more, and is about... In fact, do you know what? That's the plot. I can't tell you what the movie's about. Yeah, that's my version of what they wrote, only mine's just telling you at the end that it's crap. Here's a clip. This is when they meet for the very first time, and Rebel Wilson is smoking a cigarette. That's the setup for this scene.
It'll kill you, you know.
Which is why I like to smoke alone and in silence. You know, some things require full awareness and concentration. It's a talent, some might say it's a discipline. Total commitment to the slow process of self-annihilation.
I've never been one for small talk either. It changes you.
Do not be nice to me.
I wouldn't dream of it.
Okay, maybe I just like Rebel Wilson in Pitch Perfect.
Quite possible.
Two questions. So, one, why is she not doing an English accent if it's set in England? And two, is she funny in this or is it straight? Because I don't think straight suits her.
Okay, what's interesting bit to put on the end of that one. Given some of the things in the movie, but also Rebel Wilson in reality, I think. But also, so the accent thing. Let's do the accent thing. Rebel Wilson, at points, is trying to be British. At points, as you could hear from that prolonged 40-second clip, she gives up the ghost fairly often, which is rather how I would describe her grasp of the thespian arts, let us politely say. Yeah, Rebel Wilson, barely funny in comedies, like, ever anymore. I mean, yeah, that shtick was funny in the late 2000s, like early 2010s. It kind of stopped being funny when you were supposed to grow out of it, and you didn't, and you kept going, and you kept doing the same roles, and then you were getting annoyed that people kept hiring you for those roles, so you wrote a big book about it, and then the person you slammed in that book sued you and set their lawyers on you and had to redact it, so in the UK you can't read that chapter in which she slates Sacha Baron Cohen to absolute hell for literally hiring her for the thing that she kept getting hired for. Which is insane to me, and I could wax lyrical on that subject all goddamn day, absolutely forever, because I think the woman is an astonishing hypocrite. She's also, as evidenced by this absolute bilge, a spectacularly terrible actress. The script is garbage. The whole thing is filmed as if this is going out on. I'm trying to think. It's like aiming. I don't want to say ITV because I think that's too highbrow for this. This is really slumming.
Channel 5?
Channel 5 daytime. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely turgid. For the longest amount of this runtime, which I'm just going to check this one, was 96 minutes. For the longest amount of 96 minutes, I could not, for the life of me, tell you what the intended purpose, point, or function of this alleged work of cinema was. Save to say that someone presumably had a spare title going and thought, well, whack it on that one. It'll make sense, as much as it would any. By the end of it, I wanted to choke to death on an almond and then be buried along the sea, beside the seahorses. But it is absolutely infuriating. Charlotte Gainsborough, so much better than any of the material in this movie. Mira Sayal.
So there... I was going to say, just before, there is no reference then in the whole movie as to why it's called the Almond and the Seahorse.
They walk on the sea at one point. They walk down the beach.
Oh my God.
But that is it, yeah. Shout out as well, by the way, for Ruth Madeley, who recently appeared in Doctor Who in the 60th anniversary run of Doctor Who as the unit. She's the unit agent in the wheelchair with all the weapons. And she made a really big impression really quickly in Doctor Who. And you see her in this, and she probably only has about a dozen lines of dialogue at best. She is Mira Sayal's secretary or assistant. And again, that woman makes an impact in a ridiculously short amount of time. And I said it after Doctor Who, and I will stand by it after this. If there is one, and there will only be one positive thing that I take away from having sat through, again, all 96 agonising minutes of the ridiculously named Almond and the Seahorse, it will be that Ruth Madeley is destined for bigger things. Hopefully bigger things than this dross at absolutely any rate. Oh my God, honestly, it was agonising. I could feel every second of time that was passing on screen being sucked out of the very essence of my soul, whilst watching an actress who made her name playing characters like Fat Amy try and promote a book in which she bemoans being hired for roles based on her weight, which is actually a thing that happened in the last fortnight. Just if we're keeping it with... I know you've got to separate the art from the artist, but she's a crap artist in crap art in this case. So I don't think we really necessarily need to at this stage. If there is a word to take away from this, other than, well, stupidly titled is 2 words, it's just the word crap over and over again. Honest to God, right, my mum is one of the most middle-of-the-road people when it comes to her entertainment standards I can imagine. I was talking to my mum over the phone last night, and she was asking, you seen anything good lately? Anything you'd recommend that I can watch? You any screeners I could watch? And I went, nah, nothing you'd enjoy. Planet of the Apes is out, but you got to go to the cinemas. She says, oh, nothing I can watch. I went, I got a screener for this Rebel Wilson. She went, oh, is she the large girl from Pitch Perfect? I went, yes, she is, as you would say, the large girl from Pitch Perfect. I said, oh, is that any good? I went, oh, it's about, partner with Alzheimer's. She said, oh, that sounds good when it isn't. It isn't, I promise. As bad as your standard of film is. And my mum will watch The Day After Tomorrow on a weekly basis. Like, that's how bad her taste in entertainment is. I started telling her about this film within about 30 seconds. She's like, I'm out. It sounds rubbish. Nah.
I almost want to hear your mum do a review on the Almond and the Seahorse now that you've said that.
I don't think she'd make it. I'll tell you something. This tells you about where I come from in terms of my stock, right? I had to spend like 40 minutes on a phone call to my mum this week explaining to her, because she'd been evidently on Facebook. And you get those fan trailers? Like you get like an Iron Man 4 trailer and someone has just intercut loads of Iron Man sort of footage with voiceovers from other movies and stuff like that. And they make it look quite convincing. My mum saw one for, I forget what it was called, but she was like, it was part of the Has Fallen series. Olympus, Angel, London Has Fallen.
Yeah.
For an imagined, there is actually a 4th one being made, but someone put a fan trailer out. My mum thought it was real. She goes, oh, have you got that new Gerard Butler film yet? Can I watch that new? What new Gerard Butler film? She says, the 4th, the 4th Has Fallen. Which, incidentally, if they don't call that Has Fallen, they have failed the marketing assignment. It is apparently going to be called Night Has Fallen, and there is a 5th one on the way in 2025. So we may actually see it in the next year. But I had to explain to my mum what fan trailers were. She was heartbroken, the poor woman.
Well, it doesn't sound like she'd be too impressed with this one either, then, by the sounds of it. The Almond and the Seahorse.
I guarantee the 2 minutes she spent watching that fan trailer were more fulfilling in every single way imaginable than the 96 minutes that make up The Almond and the Seahorse, a film so bad I wanted to choke seahorses to death using almonds. That is how agonisingly poor this was.
Well, if you do, after that discussion, want to go and see it in the cinema, you can, because it's in cinemas from today.
Don't do it, you
right.
bastards.
We've got 2 left. We're going to look at the trustful Julian Assange in a moment, but next, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. We'll see what Van thought. Stay there. Welcome back then to Off Screen. We've still got the trustful Julian Assange to talk about in a moment, but it's on to the big one of the week, I think. I think we can call it that, can't we, Van? It is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So Go on,
Are you an
what do you
Apes
reckon?
fan? I've never asked this. Are you a plant fan?
I have never seen any of them.
Never. Okay, well, funnily enough, I took 3 mates with me to see this last night, and none of them had seen any of the Apes movies before. And I will tell you how they fared afterwards when I get to my own opinion. So this is... Sorry, my throat a second. This is a generational sequel, effectively, to the Apes trilogy that started in 2011 with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, continued in 2014 with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and concluded with the final chapter, War for the Planet of the Apes, in 2018. So, it's been 6 years. We've now got a sequel which takes place, quote, many generations later. We are not given a specific time frame for this. It seems to be a few hundred years. It just says many generations later. I can't imagine it's that long given certain plot developments that come along, but I'm not going to give you certain spoilers on that. We have a new ape lead named Noah, who exists in a time, say, many generations after Caesar, who, was the first talking ape. He led the rebellion at a time when humanity was falling victim to a virus that was leaving them mute and basically with the brains of children. They revert to basically Neanderthals, whereas apes obviously gain the ability to talk and cognitively function a lot higher, and this leads to a literal reverse of the way things used to be. In this new status quo, Noah is, a young warrior coming of age in his village. His village is ransacked one day, and all of his people are abducted. His dad is left for dead, and his people have been taken. And he sets out on a one-man road trip to track down, rescue, and avenge his people in a world that he knows surprisingly little about, save for these scant little clues of this remnants of an ancient civilization that he knows only as echoes. Now, I've got a clip for you. This is him meets an orangutan along the way, who's voiced by Peter Macon from The Orville. If you know the show The Orville, he's Bortus, who plays the orangutan in this one. He is a follower of Caesar. One of the only, I think he's the only follower of Caesar left, who follows the teachings from the previous movies of the ape Caesar, which are at odds with the ruling Caesar of this world named Proximus Caesar. So he meets his orangutan friend. They encounter an echo woman along the way, who they instantly name Nova, because according to Caesar, that's just what you name them all. Nice way to retcon a plot hole there. And as I say, this is them discovering that she may not actually be as Neanderthal-like as they suspect.
What did I miss?
She spoke. She called my name.
You misheard.
You said this Nova was smarter than most.
Within reason. Some intelligence, to be sure.
I have a name. May. I know where they're taking your clan.
I've got to say, the trailer's been playing. I mean, the CGI in this looks incredible. I mean, I really it's absolutely amazing to watch.
Yeah, the ape design for these movies has been terrific since 2011. This was groundbreaking 13 years ago, and it's still as good now.
Yeah,
this has obviously been made on the cheap comparative to the other three. I think probably budget-wise, probably more in comparison to the first one, more to Rise, I think, than anything else. I think the reason that you've got a very televisual cast here is you've got people like Kevin Durant, Peter Macon, as I say, and there's not really a roster of human stars in this. The human you could hear in the clip was Freya Allen from The Witcher. So I think that the money they've saved on big-name casting has quite clearly gone into keeping those visual effects to the same grade that we've come to expect. You've not got the Andy Serkis performance this time around, and you do feel that absence. But I do think Owen Teague, as the new lead Noah, great performance as well. Freya Allen makes a decent enough impression as a human lead in a Planet of the Apes movie, which is never really... It's always kind of a thankless role that you have to make your own, and we've always had actors who traditionally have found ways to do that. Think of Jason Clarke in Dawn, for instance, or Woody Harrelson as the villain of War for the Planet of the Apes. Here, we've not really got much in the way to steal the show for the human side of it. William H. Macy does appear, and there is a certain Joss Whedon alum who appears towards the end as well. it is mostly about the apes this time around. It's an animated movie, effectively, like a photorealistic animated movie that's about the apes. It's closer, if anything, to like Lion King than it is to Planet of the Apes, because there's barely any humans in it.
Wow.
Barely. Hardly any. Really good, though. Really solid. Like, it gets the adrenaline going. It hits the emotional beats really hard. Again, not a thing this series has ever struggled with. Like, the Apes movies, particularly this most recent, this century's ones, have always hit those emotional beats hard, and the acting talent has always been up to the game of selling that. I will say here there are a couple of deaths that really have me going, oh God, no, not insert name here. That honestly, there's some absolutely soul-crushing deaths in this for animated apes. To put this in context for you, that's where we're at as a society. Animated apes can reduce you to blubber. I took 3 friends. None have seen an Apes movie before. This is their first time. They loved it. As completely as a standalone film in its own right. Because like I say, it's generationally removed. This is not necessarily part 4. This is part 1 of a new trilogy that just happens to be taking place a century or so after other movies that you don't necessarily need to have seen. But 3 for 3, they all loved it. I came over, I had a banging time. I'm a big fan of these movies anyway. I think Rise was my second week as a film critic. I reviewed Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and I absolutely bloody loved it then. We watched it this week, still love it. Incidentally, think about it for a second. James Franco is the Oppenheimer of the Apes universe. True story. Yeah.
I am really glad that you've said that your 3 friends that you took with you totally got it and got, sucked in by the movie itself, because the only thing that would put me off, despite you saying it's amazing, would be thinking that I'd dive into it and there'd be references that I wouldn't understand and things that I wouldn't get. So that's good news.
There are not. Like, Marvel's not necessarily as heavy-handed, for instance, as Marvel tends to do nowadays, but there are little asides and nods here and there where they do reference things that were said or revealed in previous movies, in the previous season movies. This one, though, I will say as well, there is a MacGuffin element in this, which is never really resolved. I mean, the quest for the MacGuffin is resolved. Why we need this MacGuffin is never explained, and it's very clearly sequel setup. So the idea that this is the start of a new trilogy is very evident in this one particular unique plot point, which does, if I'm being kind of pessimistic, promise/threaten to kind of redo the cycle of the previous 3 movies, but I don't know. We'll see on that one. I live to be proved wrong. There's a lot of material you can get out of the Apes, and I mean, like you say about coming to it as a newcomer, it's interesting that this is now film number 9, if you don't count the Tim Burton remake of the actual original Apes series. If we count the Caesar ones as part of that, this is film number 9. And I managed to get 3 adult human beings to sit through this with no schooling on the subject whatsoever, and the movie explained itself well enough in the opening 90 seconds that nobody had an issue. It was, I say, really solid. Visually, it's a little bit washed out. It's not quite as bright and vibrant as you'd hope for a movie that's set largely in forests. But in terms of balancing the cinematography with the visual effects work on display and selling you on a really immersive, that ride that you go on when you've got apes swinging through trees, etc., to get that kind of camera work as immersive as they want to here. They've actually got a pretty good director in Wes Ball, because he's the newcomer to the series. Since 2011, we had Rupert Wyatt on Rise, Matt Reeves on Dawn and War, and now it's Wes Ball for Kingdom. And Wes Ball comes from a background, he gave us the Maze Runner movies. And you do find yourself looking at it thinking, you've really not expanded the visual palette here, far from the Maze Runner. In fact, you have bleached the colour out. But the directorial style is definitely there, and the movement that goes with this, I say, it's palpable, it's captivating, it's engaging, you romp along with it, which really makes it all the better then when you get to those big emotional swings. I'm like, oh yeah, I felt that, because I was really on this ride, and I was enjoying it with these characters and these, and then you hit me with the emotional wallop, and say, they sell it with aplomb. I think this will make a shed load of money. I think it's obviously this is opening day today. I think this opened yesterday, on Thursday the 9th. This is tracking for 50 million opening weekend. I would take the over on that. I would bank this as being slightly higher, because I do think there is more of a nostalgic love for the Apes trilogy, the most recent trilogy, than we give them credit for. And I do think we are seeing films 2 and 3 out of this.
I remember watching the series Planet of the Apes on a Sunday morning when I was about 7 or 8 years old. Yeah, absolutely. So what are you going, 4-star movie here?
I'll say 4. I think it's over long at 2 hours 25. Like, it's the longest one of the Apes movies. Like, all of them. It feels like this really did not need to pass the 2-hour mark. Well, you know what? I'm not going to complain. Because I'm not going to complain too hard, because I'm enjoying it, because I'm engaged by it, because it's affecting. Really, that you can't really quibble about the time. Say I'd shave 25 off of it, but yeah, 4 stars, easy.
There you go. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes in cinemas from yesterday, as Van said, so you can go and check that out this weekend if you wish. One last ride then on Off Screen. We're going to look at the trustful Julian Assange. We'll see what Van thought about that in just a second. Hello and welcome back to Off Screen for one last ride. We are going to look at the movie The Trustful Julian Assange, Mr. WikiLeaks himself. So I'm assuming this is just basically about the whole thing of WikiLeaks and how it was formed, what he did, how it happened, and what happened to him.
Actually, no. Would you believe? They don't actually really bother with that. They do tell you, on a sort of cursory level, about Assange's activities. But this is really about his not incarceration, his imprisonment within the Ecuadorian embassy, for instance, and how the pursuit to bring him to justice since, and also what the attitude towards him around the world and in government, in politics in particular, is currently. The argument of, look, did he really commit a crime, or did he simply do a journalist's job? Now, obviously, I'm aware you and I, we're people, we have opinions, of course we do. I'm willing to bet you and I probably have the same opinion on Julian Assange, which is, me, I'm all about the good name of journalism. So break the story. I believe in whistleblowers all the time. But yeah, so this is, the documentary review, but this is a much more agenda-driven. This is a very activism-led movie. It's got a lot of voice talent on there. For instance, Susan Sarandon, for instance, to contribute their appearances in voice form. But this is an exploration of kind of the legacy and treatment of Julian Assange. Have a listen to this clip.
The U.S. government narrative about Julian is a complete fraud. It is a complete fraud from A to Z.
Julian took on the most powerful countries in the world, basically all of them.
We now have confirmed that there were plans to kidnap Julian here in the center of London, or even assassinate him.
No one who instigated that illegal and immoral war has been brought to justice. But the great truth teller sits behind bars.
If wars can be started by lies, peace can be started by truth.
Julian Assange is a hero.
So did watching this change your opinion at all, or did it just enhance it?
I mean, it didn't do either, I would say, especially in my case, only because, obviously, in doing this, I've reviewed how many documentaries about Julian Assange? You and I, together, have reviewed at least 3 documentaries, 3 feature-length documentaries about Julian Assange, and I think it was before your time, but I know I reviewed the Benedict Cumberbatch Fifth Estate, the drama they did 5 or 6 years ago with Cumberbatch. Obviously, this really presents as a very sort of grassroots cause-like work. When you look at the voice talents that are in there, because they're all listed on IMDb as self/narrator, and it's people like Tom Morello and MIA and Susan Sarandon and Robert F. Kennedy and people like that, intercut with clips that we have seen do the rounds over the years. You get that clip of Biden saying, I think he's a techno-terrorist, and that designated clip that we always see of Hillary Clinton saying, I think he's a terrorist. But all of these positions obviously didn't change my mind, because I'm pro Assange, in terms of the WikiLeaks stuff. Obviously, other allegations outside of WikiLeaks have been made about Julian Assange that I could in no way endorse. But, in terms of being, incredibly pro-journalism and free speech and people have the right to know kind of a thing, I think, I'm kind of on his side for that. The documentary makes the case well enough, I suppose, for for its cause, but not well enough, I think, to change minds. I didn't feel, but then again, I was already in that position, so I'm not the easiest mark with this one. It goes along with a decent amount of energy, I will say. In terms of the people who have agreed to be spoken to for this documentary, what's his name? Tariq Ali. Tariq Ali, in particular, speaks a lot on this. I think we get a couple of interview bits with his father, who's always been kind of a polarizing character and very much what you would expect of Julian Assange's dad, for lack of a better term. But there is a lot of coverage afforded Assange's wife in this as well, who has become a big part of the cause. If there is anything new to be gained from it that I hadn't seen before, it largely comes about because of her. And talking about what it's like to have this ongoing saga be such a part of your life, for literally doing nothing other than falling for, I'm not going to say the wrong person, but falling for this one person, the absolute havoc that all of this has brought on her. They have children together now. They have 2 kids together, and he's, as she says, we don't say in prison to the kids, but sooner or later they are going to figure that out. And it is this talk about, how do you treat a person of that caliber? I think as a film, because it is a directorial debut, it's by Kim Stanton, I believe. And I think the tone she's taken with it is, like I say, it's got the energy and it's got the movement. But in terms of what it's bringing new to the table, nothing, I would say, outside of Assange's wife, definitely.
That was actually going to be my next question. Knowing how many documentaries and things that you've seen that are about Julian Assange, did you learn anything new? And I guess the answer to that is no.
No, I mean, again, the wife stuff is kind of new, I guess, ish. I knew of her. I didn't really see this, but I'm someone that watches Last Week Tonight every week and The Daily Show, so I get my Assange exposure. But it's usually in a light-hearted context. I don't think this is not one to rush out to the cinema for. This is something you will catch on streaming, and as I will also say as well, for how well made the documentary is, some of its aesthetic choices are a bit goddamn weird. It uses the Times New Roman font. Who does that?
Well, you can go watch it if you want to. The Trustful Julian Assange is out in cinemas from today. I already know the answer to this, but movie of the week, Van.
Movie of the week's Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, yo. Monkey Business is back. I tell you, it's awesome. All the way from chimpanzee, as they say on The Simpsons, to chimpanzee.
Well, you can go and see it because that's in the cinemas as well, as you well know. So let's
do IMAX.
Oh, is it? Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely an IMAX movie. Yeah. I totally agree on that, and I've not even seen it. Right. Let's look ahead to next week. We've got 4 on the list. There may be more when we get there. Sorry, week after. Yeah, we're not back next week. Week after next. The Strangers Chapter 1.
Yes, prequel to the forgotten horror movie The Strangers, which I want to say was 2007, 2006. And this is like a prequel, I think. And apparently there's going to be a whole series of these, because people do like The Strangers. I've got horror friends who are really into The Strangers. I never particularly saw it. I'm going to have to revisit it before I see this. Not the only horror movie, though, we're talking about next week. There is also Horde next week, which stars... I'm going to say he's...
Week after next.
I think this is actually out next week, though. But it stars Joseph Quinn, who I think is from Stranger Things. Is that right? Is Joseph Quinn from Stranger? Is he the guy that does the Metallica bit? Yeah. He's the new Human Torch in the MCU. That's all I'm going to say. He's one of the Fantastic Four. We have also got the Garfield movie to talk about, which is going to be new out when we come back. That is, I'm seeing that with a 5-year-old on Sunday. So wish me luck. How does?
Well, what better way to gauge
but
it?
Again, I keep asking everyone this. No one has a straight answer. How does a Garfield movie play in 2024? Is there an audience for that? I don't know. I mean,
guess time will tell.
The last attempt got a sequel, so that was Bill Murray's one in 2004. So, I mean, this can't be that bad, I'm sure. But last, and certainly by no means least, and a movie that I'm definitely assured is not in any way sucky or bad, is Furiosa. I cannot wait for this. This is the prequel to... I don't know if it's the prequel to the whole series, but it is the prequel to Mad Max Fury Road. about the Furiosa character. So this is Anya Taylor-Joy, who is going to grow up and become Charlize Theron. So this is the story of presumably how she loses her arm, shaves her head, and becomes, the hottest South African woman that ever lived. So we shall find out, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds like 4 good ones to look forward to. That is, of course, all we have time for this week. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so we'll see you then. And until then, I've been Adam Ball.
I've been Ben Connor, and we shall return.